This is from at Warren Larson 97. Prices will ebb and flow, but do you think NES/SNES will always be collectible as the birth point of modern gaming?
My answer to that is no. I think because of let's look at NES just for example. I think NES has had a longer run in terms of being collectible because it is kind of the birthplace of the point of modern gaming. It's when video games looked more or less like what they said they were going to look like. Anyone can pick them up and play them today, and it's not like it's super abstract. You can pick up a copy of Mario Brothers and play it. You pick up a copy of Adventure, then you've never played it. You're never gonna. I mean,
plus they established the marketable characters going forward in franchises
right.
For the most part.
So I think that NES has enjoyed a longer run of collectability because of that. But no, I don't think it's going to be evergreen, and I certainly don't think it'll be evergreen for the Super Nintendo. Because once you get past the NES, I think the NES does, love it or hate it, it was like the spark point for modern console gaming. Now, though, I think that the whole notion of modern gaming, the birth of modern gaming, the beginning of modern gaming, people who are younger than us, people who are born now, are going to keep seeing the things that they grew up with as perhaps birth points of modern gaming.
Sure.
And I think those will be collectible for a while. It's like I've talked to Pat and I have had some disagreements on it, but yes, there are people right now out there, and they're not going to try to do full sets, but actively collecting PlayStation 2. It's what they grew up with. I don't know that they're going to consider it the birth point of modern gaming, but at some point, the general public, the general collecting public, is going to be of an age where they're not really going to consider the NES the start of that. They're going to look at it as the start of 3D gaming or the start of photorealistic gaming. And I think that I basically the importance of the system that they're collecting for, they're going to find their own reasons to make that system important in their minds. Just like we're sitting here calling the NES the birthplace of modern gaming, but I mean, there's other birthplaces of modern gaming too. The Atari, the arcade. I mean, it's all relative.
What do you describe as modern? I don't think something could be modern if it doesn't exist anymore. So like when you say the Atari 2600, there's almost nothing related to gaming nowadays that goes back to the 2600. You can say, yeah, there was cartridges, it was popular,
sure,
but it died out.
All I'm getting at is
the NES style of gaming did not die out.
The beginning point of gaming for everyone is going to be changing as we get older.
But modern gaming, he means like, I guess historically would always be seen as that, and that's why it'll always be collectible. I don't know. Just because it's a birth point in time historically doesn't mean there'll be interest in it.
Sure.
Because look at like the birth of rock and roll was in the 50s, and people aren't listening to rock and roll music more so than modern rock or something like AC/DC.
The birth of recorded sound was, cylinders. I'm not buying cylinders.
Now I'm thinking because I heard that. I heard the cylinder in the Edison plants in New Jersey. Mary had a little lamb. It was legend slow. I heard that.
That's pretty cool.
Those cans, remember?
Yeah.
That's still there. Yeah, I was kind of, it wasn't a shock, but the derision that the Switch Online got for not having Super Nintendo games and NES games, and then every month was like, who cares about these games? And it was like, some of these are classic games. Just because you didn't grow up with them doesn't mean they're not good. It happened quickly. And
there was a lot of shit put on there.
I wouldn't say a lot, Ian. But the point is that I think people younger than us, people like in their early 20s, would be willing to accept the Super Nintendo as acceptable. I can play games like that. I'll play Super Mario World, but maybe I won't want to play Super Mario Brothers, the original. Maybe that's too primitive for them. And so I think, like you said, in that respect, yeah, they don't care about what came before.
Yes, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. We look at Nintendo as the start. Well, some people older than us would argue the 2600, but we're going to look at the 2600 stuff and be like, yeah, it's a little primitive, but the Nintendo stuff, no, this is the start. And then obviously you're right, because we did see that with the Nintendo Online stuff, people basically making the same arguments about NES games that we would have made about Atari 2600 games.
Sure.
So yeah, that cutoff for what people think is the start or what they can easily get into That's going to constantly shift. So no, long story short, I do not think it'll always be collectible.
Well, for just from a pragmatic standpoint, I mean, NES games are already on the downswing. They have been for 3 years now. There's just too many of them. When you say, will they always be collectible, what do you mean? Do you mean any random Super Mario Brothers cart? Do you mean the entire library? Do you mean a high-end complete and box copy of Super Mario 3? What do you mean it will always be collectible? I still maintain that 90% of the library is going to rapidly decline in value the same way 2600 games do. The same way you can't give away Intellivision games at this point. No one gives a shit about that console. No one cares about the Odyssey 2. Like, you're going to have a similar issue with the NES. It might take a little bit longer because the prices are so much higher now on average, but it will get to a point that, yeah, that they'll just sit around. And it won't matter if it's a point of anything. There won't be enough people to keep the value arisen because we'll be dead or retired. That's just a stark reality.
Yeah.
People will move on. Maybe people will be collecting the last remnants of physical media. They'll be collecting Switch physical games in 20 years. And that'll be something people collect. I probably don't see that happening, but there will be some people maybe that'll go after it. But we are in the final throes of physical media by and large, and it'll be seen as a relic in the past. The same way, like, you know, kids growing up might be, oh, it's cool that they had records and vinyl and cassettes. It's all on their phone or all on YouTube listening to music. They'll have no need to even worry about what existed before.
Right.
That's just reality. I mean, piano rolls, Ian. Go back to piano rolls. My grandfather's piano rolls.
Oh, pizza rolls.